Welcome to another ultra maximum awesome edition of the Boba Joe Show.
Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's keeping well. Hope everybody's still in the mood for some wrestling talk.
Wrestling or wrestling?
It's wrestling this week because
That's right.
we're venturing down south. We're hitting the Greensboro Coliseum and hitting Jim Crockett Promotions to get a look at what was happening on the other side of the fence. Good old Clash of the Champions, first ever Clash of the Champions. We see the beautiful Boba Joe Championship belt there on display. Who will be the first Boba Joe champion? Will it be Boba?
Not this guy. Not Goldberg. He's not in that. Don't worry. Don't panic. He's not around for many more years to injure people.
Yeah, we value our safety here at the Boba Joe promotion.
Yeah, look after our opponents.
Clash. Yeah, we're going to take care of our opponents. We're not going to like kick anybody in the head and end their career or anything like that. Not unless they're asking for it. But a very, very historically significant event we're going to cover today. We should probably mention right off the bat that this event is going head to head with a show that we have previously reviewed on this channel. It's going head to head with WrestleMania 4. So the war continues. It's the Crockett's versus Vince McMahon. And they're going to try and put a dent in the WWF's business by going head to head with them on the same day as WrestleMania. So on the same night that we're going to witness Randy Savage crowned WWF champion after winning that grueling tournament in Mania 4, that's the same night this the first ever Clash of Champions is going to air. And you know, hard to know whether it really affected the overall buy rate for Mania. I'm sure a lot of people who were going to buy Mania were going to buy it anyway, regardless of what was on TBS that night. But we can't deny the fact that this clash was a major ratings win for TBS at the time. Millions of people tuned in. I think like Sting versus Flair is one of the most watched wrestling matches on television ever, after only Hogan versus Andre, which is a big one. But
that's what Cornette was saying on the podcast, since like Mania 3 was one of the most watched like live ones for people tuning in and that.
So yeah, a big event here. And I think one of the things I like most about this event, I'm not sure how you feel about these things, but I like that it's around about 2 hours. It's not too long.
Yeah, it's not too long.
It's not 2 days, fucking 8 hours a piece, you know.
Yeah. And there's not really any filler. There's some very brief interview segments and promos, but they're all just like really to the point and short. There's no fluff. There's no filler to pad out for time like they do in most modern stuff. Well, not just modern stuff. Anything post year 2000 is padded out. You know, it's got all sorts of trailers and promos and recaps, and there's a lack of that stuff. It's just all killer, no filler.
Exactly. And look, it's not like the events from the past escape the filler stuff either, because we have been reviewing these WWF shows that had tons of segments that just seemed to drag on and had a time. Like, you know, we were talking about that, you know, the bench press deal with Dino Bravo and the brother love stuff with Hacksaw. Like, we're not going to get any of that type of nonsense on this show that we're talking about today.
We get one bit of nonsense, which is that some dude from Leave It to Beaver, an American show I've never seen because it's before my time, talking to Jim Cornette. That's a bit of filler, but it's also just like, here's the crummiest celebrities we could get on short notice, plus some other dude from what's that Fred Savage bloody show in the 80s?
Oh, Wonder Years.
Yeah, there's another character, the other character from that who's not the main guy. It's like, I don't even recognize
Jason Harvey, who they will announce as the star of the Wonder Years. It's like, he's not the star.
Not the star. I don't even remember it. My missus remembers. I paused that. Said, "Do you know that guy is?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that's that dude."
And to be fair, he's in lots of stuff as a a child actor or whatever. He did have
Yeah.
a little career for himself, and he did end up kind of having like a semi connection to the wrestling business. Like he's best mates with Eric Bischoff, and they've done a few things together production wise, and
Oh, nice.
he was also dating Missy Hyatt for a while. So it's weird seeing this little child actor here as a judge in the Clash of Champions, and then knowing he's kind of going to grow up and be kind of a part of the business in some ways, as well as doing other TV related stuff. It's wild.
Well, that
Yeah,
makes him one of the more relevant celebrity guests that he went on to.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
a
I
day
know,
that
I'd
I
agree
kept,
with
but
that.
someone who actually went on to do something useful.
So we got the Eddie Haskell Leave It to Beaver guy. We got Jason Harvey from the
And
Wonder
I don't know who
Years.
the
We got
lady is. I've got no clue.
the lady is Patty Mullen, who was a penthouse pet of the month,
Oh, really? Well, they don't even
and
show her face
also,
hardly in the thing. It's like you briefly see it, and then you just always see in the back of her head. It's like
what
great use
else?
of the pretty face there.
She she may be famous. Well, she's semi-famous for a movie I'd say you've probably heard of, um, Frankenhooker. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
that
yeah.
movie?
I've not seen it, but I've certainly heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, Paddy Mullen, this lady who's one of the judges for Clash of Champions, is the star of Frankenhooker. She plays
Ah,
Frankenhooker in the movie Frankenhooker. So how many times can I say the words Frankenhooker in a short space of time? So yeah, those are our like and there's a couple of like, there's you know, a few guys or a couple other guys who are like, retired wrestling promoters and commentators or whatever, kind of making up
yeah.
the rest of the celebrity entourage. But it's Paddy Mullen, Eddie Haskell, and Jason Harvey are kind of the main current, TV people that they have showing up to this event. So yeah, Jim Crockett not afraid to splash out on the celebs, even though I suspect this PBS themselves probably had a hand in getting these folks on the show, considering they were probably
Yeah.
airing the shows that they were on at the time.
And they did sort of have like whenever I watched sort of stuff, whether it was the Crockett or whether it was into the Turner area of the WCW and Saturday night, they would regularly have kind of people to do with those networks and shows. Different people would turn up, and a lot of the people I have no clue who they are. Or occasionally, it's some obnoxious teenager from one of the popular teen shows of the time, and talking to like Jim Ross or something. You can tell Jim Ross is just like, why am I talking to this obnoxious little shit instead of an adult?
Yeah, and sometimes they can be like very specific with like depending on the area of the country they're in or what town they're shooting in. Like they'll have somebody who may be like a celebrity, as in like he's a local sports hero or something like that. But
Yeah.
like I can tell you as like an Irish guy watching it in 2025 or whatever, I don't have a fucking clue who loads of these people are when they
Hmm.
introduce them.
But at
Um,
least they're usually a bit more relevant, or they're just doing like a, like you hear like local radio and TV, someone comes on, they're promoting a thing in the area, or they've got a product, or someone goes on Letterman, here's my new book, here's my new book. It's that sort of shit more than saying like, I don't know, Liberace at WrestleMania or Muhammad Ali. They're not there just to be a celebrity. It's more like I'm pimping my wares sort of thing, but relevant to the shows and region and all that.
how do you feel about them actually using the celebrities as judges as
It's
opposed to
very
just having
strange. It's very strange. It feels weird because normally, I mean, you don't need judges. It's like decided by who beats the other guy in the wrestling match, because it's not, it's not boxing or UFC or something that's decided on points most of the time, unless you have a special match where you're changing the rules to say we're going to have these judges for this particular thing. So it's
it's
weird for
very
me.
odd. And like,
It
what
doesn't interfere
does
with the match though, so yeah.
thankfully it doesn't interfere with the match because yeah, like even from like a logic point of view, like what does the penthouse pet of the month or a 14-year-old boy, like what type of skills do they have to judge whether somebody wins or loses a wrestling match? It's a very strange type of concept to try and wrap your head around. Like if you're going to have judges like would make sense, say, to have like an ex wrestler or an ex, something to do with the sport
Yeah.
as a judge. But like, yeah, having these like random celebrities as potential decision makers, it's a bit crazy.
And it's
Especially
only
coming
supposed to
from the
be if there's not a clear and definitive winner. I think anyway. I
yes,
think that's a stipulation.
yes,
Then it goes to the judges thing, but which is funny because in a way it kind of telegraphs the ending of the match by having the judges there.
yeah. Because why do we even have them here if we're
Yeah,
probably not
yeah.
going to use them for
Not
that
that
exact
it
reason?
matters because it's. I mean, it's about the quality of the match to me, not about the finish or whatever.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like,
Unless it's a bad finish,
ultimately,
then you don't like it. But if it's if it's if it's a good match, I don't really care how it ends. It's it's more about the journey than the destination.
yeah, like at least it didn't end with little Jason Harvey sliding into the ring with a chair and like, nut shotting Sting and handing the chair to Flair for Flair to like cave his head in or whatever. That would have been awful. Um, but though thankfully we didn't go down that road on the night. But
So, how do you feel about the opening match we get? The first match we get of Clash, we get Mike Rotunda versus Jimmy Garvin, and of course we got in the hanging around ringside what Kevin Sullivan and Precious. And maybe you can also tell us about. I've seen plenty of these guys in singles, but they had like a group called Varsity Club, which I'm not familiar with at this time, and like the storyline.
yeah, the Varsity Club, it's actually kind of a strange group because the initial premise behind the group was that it was a club of these former amateur wrestlers and shooters. Like they're like, so say Mike Rotundo and Rick Steiner, for example, they both would come out in the old wrestling singlets. They'd have the wrestling headgear on, like the amateur wrestling headgear, and that was kind of the slant of what the gimmick was about. But what makes it strange is the fact that Kevin Sullivan is in the group, because Kevin Sullivan
No, I think I'm
doesn't
more of
look
a
like an
Satanist
amateur
than a
wrestler.
wrestler. So
Yes, yeah,
how does that work?
yeah. It's a very odd pairing to have him as the kind of partner in the group. He's just very visually
He feels like
different and
he
acts
feels
very
like he's
different.
always the odd pairing as it gets past his core era where he was kind of like in his gimmick and thing. It feels like one of those guys who's obviously talented, but they're always kind of pairing him with odd pairings because they don't seem to know what to sort of do with them. That and as far as who fits
Yes,
with them.
yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it there. But for he is talented and he generally has a knack for making strange things work, and
Yeah,
he does
I
work
don't
as
mean in
a
a negative
manager
way. He could
for.
probably work with whoever and make it work.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, and he comes out here with Mike Rotundo or Rotunda, depending on who's saying his name. And it's one of those things. I hadn't watched this show in a while, so when they were announcing the stipulation for this match, I was kind of rolling my eyes because of how contrived it sounded. Because they're going for 3 5-minute rounds, and to win a round, you only have to pin the guy for a 1 count as opposed to a
Yeah,
3 count.
counts
And
strange.
I was like, why are they doing this? This is probably going to be shite. But it actually turned out to be a pretty entertaining and good match. Because the two guys, Jimmy Garvin and Mike Rotunda, they worked within the stipulation. There was a decent amount of build up to this match on the shows leading up to it. So there was, plenty of heat on the night for Garvin and Rotunda to go at it. So basically what happens in the first round, they keep it mostly clean. It's lots of kind of headlocks and holds and kind of slipping out and reversing moves. And it's pretty uneventful the first round, but by the second round, they're kind of starting into the brawling and the punching, the kicking, and the more pro wrestling high spots, and the crowd really start to kind of come alive and get into it. So even though it's a weird stipulation and it sounds kind of contrived, when you do actually watch it or rewatch it, it's actually, oh no, it's a pretty good match, and the crowd are into it and actually care about what's going on, which is the most important thing when you're actually trying to kind of put a match like this over. I'm just looking here as well. So it's actually called, and this is going by the Wikipedia results, the stipulation of what this match is, it's called a college rules match. Like, that doesn't sound very exciting when you say it. A
Not
college
really.
rules match.
It's funny the way the flow of it goes, because it's almost like a little mini history of pro wrestling of this match. It's like, we'll start out doing some shooted proper wrestling stuff, then we'll get into some showy, flashier stuff. Then we'll do some Benny Hill running around the ring managers' antics and back and forth and cheating and blindsiding the referee and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, they kind of run the gauntlet of all the wrestling styles that you could, the evolution of from sport to shenanigan. Because at the very end, or the closing moments of the match, there's lots of comings and goings from Kevin Sullivan and Precious, just
And
doing
doesn't
lots of
Steiner
running about.
appears a little bit at the end? He runs in at one point.
That's right. And then it's when all the shenanigans go off, that's what gives Mike the edge in order to score the cheeky win over Garvin.
I feel like the Southern crowds really get into the when the interference and when the camera pulls back and you got the managers outside and they're running around it before they get back in the ring. The crowd really gets into that part of it. They're really just like God nuts.
Yeah, I love hearing the sound of a rumbling in the crowd that starts off kind of low, but then just goes up in volume as the guy runs to the ring, because it's that kind of realization.
There's no stupid music telling you half an hour before he gets there.
Yeah, they don't play the music just to get a cheap pop and then have a really unsurprising run in. We actually get the natural reaction of a crowd seeing somebody run in by watching him make his way from the entrance all the way to the ring with no announcements, no introduction. Just run in and get your licks in, and the crowd goes wild. Pretty much, they're really into that stuff. This crowd. What do you think of the actual? Before we get on to the next match, what do you think of the look of the show in general? I think it looks really nice with the dimly lit audience and spotlight on the ring.
That's one of the things I actually like about the NWA and Crockett era shows, is that I can say good things and bad things about shows from any era as far as the setup and the lighting and the crowd and all that. But where it might be easy looking at something modern, it's so bright and we can see everything and it's HD. You can look back and go, oh man, the picture quality looks crap and this is so dim, and don't they have any lights? Have they got no budget? It's like, no, it's like that on purpose. You can see the ring in the center. It's like the old time boxing matches is that the crowd's dark because we don't need to see all of the crowd. We can see a bit of them, but it's not glaring and bright and seeing all the big sea of faces. You're focused on the ring in the center as it should be. And I find to me, it's more enjoyable to watch, and it's less glare and brightness on the TV as well when I'm just trying to watch and enjoy it. I really like the Crockett style, the way they light it compared to the WWF style, where it's like everything's just super bright and you can see every single bit of everything everywhere all the time. And it's like almost like watching a Where's Waldo book. It's just like too much for my eyes.
I think there's an element of fatigue there as well when it comes to that like overproduced look, possibly as well, because it took a little while, I have to say, because we reviewed like 3 WWF shows in a row there, maybe 4, I don't know. Where we did a lot of WWF shows recently. It took, like, when I was rewatching this week, it took a little while for my brain to adjust to the, there's a lot of like dark colors, greens and browns, as opposed to like WWF. It feels like you're watching Wizard of Oz sometimes. It's such bright, technicolor, colorful, cartoony.
It is. It is unfortunately a bit washed out, not because of the degraded video quality as well. But so one thing is the lighting of the ring, like it's darker on purpose. But the other thing is the colors are a bit washed out because of the video quality. Whatever they recorded it on, or whether it's deteriorated, it doesn't look as pristine as if you go and watch a Mania from the same era. They had much higher quality image definition, but also however they stored it, as they've preserved it. Whereas a lot of everybody that's not WWF, their stuff's all slowly gone to shit because it's been sitting around who knows how many studios and sitting around before we ever got to see it on DVD and digital versions of it.
Yeah, you can definitely see,
Just
even
like
just
old
watching
films, you know,
this
it's all
show.
sitting there rotting.
Yeah, there's a real grit and graininess to the footage you're looking at compared to the jazzed up,
But it
you
still
know,
looks quite
WWF
crisp when you
archive.
watch it in motion. It looks fine. It's just it's like David Fincher's come in and gone, right, we're going to mute all these colors and put a bit of brown in here.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast. And if you were someone who is maybe lucky enough to watch Mania 4 and this, like somehow maybe you just had access or the money to watch Mania 4 as well, but
Yeah, it would
it
look a lot
must be
better
quite
in
the
person back then when it live on a CRT
yeah
because you wouldn't because you're not seeing film stock or what I don't know if they recorded this on film stock or on bloody VHS because I've got no fucking clue what they recorded it on. Whatever they recorded on some form of media like that is not as good as the live presentation when it would have been on.
yeah, definitely. But no, look, it's its own thing. I can appreciate both looks, but yeah, it was a little bit jarring after looking at so much WWF stuff to kind of when we're hitting NWA again, you do have to kind of readjust
Yeah,
your
yeah,
expectations a
it's
little bit.
pretty much not until well, I can't really specify a particular year from the Crockett to the WCW, but by the time you get to Nitro, they've definitely upgraded their cameras and all that and got bigger
Yeah,
budget. But some point in the later 90s, they obviously got better equipment and all that.
yeah, and they will get there. And look, part of the appeal in some ways is that it just doesn't look as nice and overproduced as the WWF. So,
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. It's no different than watching like a VHS from an 80s movie where stuff was always
yeah,
too damn dark and washed out. Watch any Friday the 13th on VHS from a rental store. You can't see a fucking thing of those movies.
exactly. But no, we're going to see one of our favorites here at ringside now for this next match. Mr. James E. Cornette himself
Jim
is going
Cornette.
to he's going to show up. He's going to make the introduction for the Midnight.
Welcome back to the Boba Joe Show. Sounds like
He just shows up whenever he wants to.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh man, Jimmy, he's going to do his classic Midnight Express introduction for Stan Lane and Bobby
And
Eaton.
he's got a jacket now. It's got the two, it's like skull and crossbones, but it's two rackets. It's two crossed
Yeah,
rackets.
you know what else he has? He
What's he got?
has a
I'm just going to attend to this
whole
cat.
bunch. He has a whole bunch of fans sitting in the front row. That's what he has because when just moments before he makes his entrance, they do a shot of the people in the front row, and they're all holding like signs, and each sign has a letter and spells out the name Cornette. So Jim has a lot of fans in attendance tonight, it would seem, because he gets plenty of tears mixed in with the jeers he usually gets from this audience. There must have been a decent percentage of smart fans in the audience
Yeah.
tonight for the show. But we're going to get a really nice little tag team match here between two great tag teams. Well, actually, one very good tag team and a great tag team. I'd call the Midnight Express a great tag team, and I would call the Fantastics a very good tag team. A notch below the Midnights, I would say. It's very hard to match the Midnights in terms of tag team wrestling, so we won't go too hard on the Fantastics for that. But
I know
as
the
the
pause in the
story,
crowd to show the ladies like swooning, like, oh.
yeah, oh the Fantastics are popular with the kids and the ladies, and the Midnights seem popular with the adult males in the audience. It seems on this night, but as Jim Cornette explains in his own kind of retelling of this time period, the Midnight Express, they'd been going through a little bit of a rough patch. They'd been involved in a couple of programs with other teams that had just kind of fell apart. Like they were working with the new breed, but they got injured, and then they'd been working with Dusty Rhodes and Nikita, but then Nikita left to take care of his sick wife for a while. So they'd kind of been kind of thrown from pillar to post, and they hadn't really had a decent tag team feud that was really gravitating with their fans. So they decided to bring in the Fantastics to work with them. And the Fantastics, they had been working in Texas. They were looking to get out of there. The pay wasn't very good. The territory was on its knees. So at the behest of Jim Cornette, WCW gave them a call, or NWA, I should say, gave them a call, Jim Crockett, and offered them a job. And thank goodness they accepted, because we got to have not just this match, but a nice little series of matches between them and the Midnight. And, you know, two really, really good tag teams. Both tag teams do smooth double teams. You got the perfect heels in the Midnight Express facing off against the perfect baby faces and the Fantastics. Just really smooth work that the crowd's into. They're hanging on every move, and they just have this beautiful match that, you know, does one of those dusty finishes where we think that our fan favorites, the Fantastics, have actually won, but no. Once the other referee comes down and, you know, reverses the decision, it turns out that the Midnights are actually the winners of the match. And it's a finish that's kind of somewhat typical of the time, and depending on where it's happening and when, it can really anger the crowd. But they get away with it on this night, doing their dastardly shenanigans with the Midnights and all that comes from that. But what did you think of this tag team match between the Midnights and the
Oh, it was
Fantastics?
very, very enjoyable, and like the ending business and reversing decisions and win but not winning. That's a very like Southern wrestling thing. That's a very Dusty Road sort of finish.
Big time dusty finish. But, you know, it does, you know, extend the reason for the teams to continue to wrestle each other going
Yeah,
forward. So there's going to be, you know, like it's like, I totally guess, like, when you're a fan at the time and you're watching something in the moment, you do often want to see like a definitive end. So I can understand frustration as a fan, you know, watching the show like week to week, day to day, and wanting your guys to get the big win and then getting annoyed. But when you do look back on these things and look at the kind of bigger picture, you can see that these type of finishes did have a function and, you know, a
yeah.
reasoning behind
If I
them
was
to
going to
extend
a regular
programs.
venue, not a pay per view, but like a weekly or monthly show in my hometown, I'd want it to keep going on for months, back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah. And you're not going to be able to do that if you just have guys trading clean wins all the time, which is a
Yeah.
big problem in modern wrestling, because the way they
Well,
tend
it's
to do it, it's
TV.
like,
TV
okay,
and cable is what changed wrestling and shortened all the storylines, where stuff used to go for months or even a year or more, and everything gets shortened now.
yeah, everything gets shortened. The
It's less impact.
modern crowds are kind of spoiled when it comes to clean finishes. Like, we always expect a clean pinfall or a clean submission, and it does damage in the long term when you've got a bunch of people who've been booked kind of 50-50 to, oh, you know, you got to win and then I got to win, and nobody
Yeah.
really wins
Well,
because we both
what
win, you know.
one that surprised me last year was like Punk and Drew. That went on for at least 3/4 of the year. There was only a handful of matches. I was surprised they let it go out that long, but I think it came partly because he was injured at the start and he came over from the AEW and all that. But that was, to me, a bit more like the old 70s, 80s style, like where you had a longer form story and there was just little highlights of promos and little highlights of matches here and there. You weren't seeing them all the time, but it made it a bit more special. And then when they had the payoff at the Bad Blood, it just made it, you know, to me, it was a good payoff.
Oh, big time, big time. And, you know, maybe like one of these days it's going to happen. We are going to probably dip our toe in a bit of modern wrestling, and some of
Yeah,
that CM Punk, Drew McIntyre stuff would definitely be one of the better examples of, you know, material we could be looking at in terms of the type of stuff we would enjoy, and that, you know, that other adults of a similar vintage to ourselves would probably enjoy as well, due to
yeah,
the
and they've
old
kind of
schoolness of it.
successfully spun off now into, like, they've kept the background feud with Rollins going back and forth, but not directly. He's always the smart mouth that comes out and smart mouths back to Punk. But now that's like those two and Reigns, and you know, they've still kept some of that going with the promos, even when they're not wrestling, just doing stuff here and there.
Well, there ain't no punks in this next match we got coming up. Because we're going to get a nice quick dose of violence in this 6-man barbed wire match we're about to get. It's going to be
what a rush!
oh yeah, it's Dusty and the Road Warriors going up
And
against
Dusty's
the Powers
on
of
Road
Pain
Warriors
and Ivan
makeup. He's got
Koloff.
the face paint on.
They should have called the team the Dusty Road Warriors.
Dusty.
That could have been the team.
It's like the Road Warriors and the Fat Uncle. If you wanted to come down and join it.
It's quite timely that we're talking about this match, because was it maybe last week or the week before I mentioned that I thought the Powers of Pain were a little bit of a Road Warriors ripoff in terms of how they look, and now we're seeing them in the same ring, and you can kind of see the similarities between the two, and I love it. I don't care that they're similar. It works great visually, because it's hard sometimes to believe that anybody can beat the Road Warriors because of how big and powerful they appear. So when you have another tag team that looks just as big and powerful as them, at least it makes it believable that they could potentially beat them. And then you add the star power of Dusty in here, and the heel antics of good old Ivan, who gets very bloodied up during this match. At one point, like, his head is just gushing. But there'd be people who would look at this match stipulation and they would just assume it would be like an out and out bloodbath. It's actually not overly violent, considering that it's a barbed wire match. Like, it's
still kind of like a family barbed wire match, or such a thing as possible.
Like, it's still quite a violent brawl, and there is some blood, but not like, we're not seeing guys, getting like hung in barbed wire or getting like lashed across the back with barbed wire or stuff like that. It's
it's not like one of those Japanese death matches or something.
It's contained mostly within the ring, everything that happens, and there's no big let's do this like obviously fake thing where I'm going to hit you with like some rubber barbed wire or anything. Everything that happens in it looks believable, and it comes down to believability as well, because if I'm in a ring surrounded by barbed wire, I'm going to be trying my damnedest not to let it touch me and to stay far away from it. And the guys in this match,
spools of it.
Yeah, it's real. It's that really keeps the old bulls from wandering on to the other guy's land. It serves a purpose. And yeah, look, I'd be trying my best. Like, these guys are clearly trying their best to make it look like they're trying to avoid getting like cut up and stuff. Like, there's a real struggle, to try and like get guys and get them into the barbed wire and corner and confine them. But Dusty, he's over like Rover with this crowd. They are just going crazy for everything he does, and when he does the flip flop and fly combo and stuff, they are just going bananas. And after, I suppose, the previous match with how we kind of did the dodgy finish, the crowd are kind of delighted with this one, because Dusty and the Road Warriors just like go over clean, and they beat their enemies, and they just give that crowd that kind of uplifting happy ending that they're looking for the match. It's it should probably be mentioned as well, because we did speak about the crappy weightlifting competition angle they did with Dino Bravo. Prior to this match that we're watching now, they actually did a bench press angle with the Road Warriors on the NWA show, where the Powers of Pain jumped them during the competition and beat them up and like hit them with the weights and stuff. It's much better than what we watched with Dino Bravo and Jesse and the gang on WWF. So definitely have to give the win to the NWA and Jim Crockett when it comes to doing weightlifting angles. They have the WWF beat there, way better. Way better.
When they do that little bits like that, it doesn't overstay their welcome. Doesn't go on too long.
Yeah, exactly. It's an angle with a purpose that they keep it moving. It doesn't hang around long enough for you to think it's phony baloney setup.
What did you think of the I forget the name of the lady Crockett who comes out and tells you about the matches and the tiers and this and that.
Yeah.
If you thought Bob Cottle was like chalk on cardboard, like, what did you think of the Crockett lady come out?
Yeah, Janice Crockett in her back in ball gown, reading out the list of names. Yeah, look, uh, the Crockett's love using their family members on
Yeah,
screen, but she is just
like you're not
like
getting
I feel
someone not
sorry
just
for her.
model or something. It's just like who else is in the family? Get them out there. They can
Yeah,
announce the thing.
it's hard to tell. I can't tell whether she's nervous or whether she's just bored reading out the
Yeah.
names. It's maybe something a little bit in between. It's like I don't want to do this, and also I don't really know what I'm talking about.
But part of
But she manages
part of
to
the
get
charm of
through
these
it.
shows is just how chintzy some of those bits are.
Yeah. It's not as bad as that time we watched the wrestling classic and we had Vince and Alfred Hayes pointing at that woman with a stick, getting her to bend
Yeah,
down and
and
put
then half
names on her
groping the
floor.
lady as well, and oh, it was weird.
But I suppose it's maybe little things like that where if you were maybe a person in the TV business looking at this show and comparing it to WrestleMania, you'd probably be thinking, okay, the production values are a little bit lower here than they are with the feds.
Yeah,
I could get
different
that
than those
criticism.
slicksters from New York.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, she Janice Crockett, bless her, she was obviously asked to do it and she did it. I'm looking at the times here. I can't believe that barbed wire match we just spoke about only was 3 minutes and 39
Yeah,
seconds
it
long.
feels longer.
But it feels longer in a good way. Like it feels like you saw a lot in a short
Yeah,
amount of
I
time.
feel also too those like match times don't include the like entrances and other bits in between. Because when you look on the actual event, like Flair Sting's 45 minutes, but if you include like the lead up to it, it's more like 55 minutes.
And we got something a little bit longer now for the next match, and it's one of those. It's like a sleeper hit of a match because you kind of forget it's on the show sometimes because everybody only ever really remembers the main event of the show, even though
Yeah,
all the matches are good. But um, this next match with Luger and Barry Windham going up against Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, it is a
there's so much talent.
cracking little tag. Yeah, great tag match. Great tag match. It's something else. We've mentioned, have we only spoken about Lex Luger when we've done WWF shows? Is this our first time seeing
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
NWA
First
Lex
time
Luger?
having a Southern Luger because he had quite a career there, and then was only briefly in WWF before he was back down south again.
Yeah, this is the real Lex Luger. This is the good
Yeah,
Lex Luger we're seeing here. The young, motivated Lex Luger who is, even though he's still kind of fresh in the business, he's really getting a good aptitude for it, and he's learning from the best here because he's in the ring with three other guys who are just fantastic talents in Wyndham, Blanchard, and Anderson. But in fairness to Luger, like he is really over with the crowd. They clearly love him. He looks like $1,000,000. He's got a physique that's better than Hulk Hogan. He's taller than Hulk
yeah.
Hogan. If
He
Hogan's
keeps it
watching
too.
there,
He keeps it
he
right
does.
from then. I mean, obviously, there's bits where if you look at a decade, there's times where someone's injured or out or whatever in between jobs. But I watched WCW Greed from 2001 the other day. It was on the YouTube channel, and Luger was teamed up with, I think it was Buff Bagwell or someone. He came out with someone else who was big and buff like him. But he's still bloody amazing. I was like, Jesus, he really keeps his physique right through the era.
Yeah, no, he stayed looking good right up until obviously he hit a bad time in his life where he
Yeah, it
couldn't
was
he
out of
couldn't
work
keep up
and
with it anymore.
wrong kind of
Yeah,
drugs and ones that make you go small and not big. It's like,
yeah, but from his early runs with the NWA right through WCW, WWF, and back to WCW again, he looks fantastic physically the whole time. But his shining era for work rate, if you want to use that term, or just having good matches, it's definitely right here what we're looking at now because he's really at the peak of his abilities. It feels like he's
yeah, it's
having
like a
great
different
runs.
person compared to what you see him in WWF and that. He's just so much better here.
Yeah, and he's got there's a real snap and quickness to how he moves. Like he's doing the power moves, but he's doing them with a type of like a real ferociousness and
Mm.
meaning behind them. letting out those screams every time he hits a clothesline. He's like, ah, every time he goes for a clothesline. He's just really, really intense. And of course, you know, he's teaming with Barry Windham, who's an actual natural athlete and a fantastic wrestling talent, especially at this point in time. He hasn't yet fallen off the hill, and he's still doing really, really, really well for himself. And you know, we want to talk about a fantastic tag team. You know, it's pretty hard to beat the tag team of Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. They are a ridiculously talented tag team, members of the illustrious Four Horsemen, and I don't think we've spoken about them individually as singles. I think this is our first time getting to chat properly about them as a tag team. We may have briefly mentioned them as the Brain Busters when we've been talking about our WWF show, because they did have a brief run in the WWF, but we're getting to see Tully and Arn here in their proper Horseman vibe as tag team champions, though they won't be tag champions by the time this night is over, because Luger and Wyndham are going to get the big win here. It's actually a real testament, I think, to Crockett at the time and their creative forces of Dusty Rhodes and the like, that they're managing to get two bright young stars of the future, even three bright young stars of the future. Really, they're getting them all over at the same time. You've got Barry Windham, you've got Lex Luger, and then later on we're going to see Sting, all on
Yeah.
the same show. They're all getting real feature prominent matches to kind of semi-main event and main event the show. There's a real sense of a youth movement going on with the Crockett's at the time here.
And you also kind of got a bit of legacy with with like your Andersons and that, going back to your Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was kind of like WCW before it was called WCW, and then into Crockett, and then into the later, later 90s WCW and Nitro. And the Andersons are like, just present through all these different variations and shows and promotions.
They are, the kayfabe cousins of Ole and Arn, and then later, just as Ole takes a back seat and it becomes Arn and Tully as the kind of main force in tag action. And I think we've spoken about Tully, of course, as well. He had that bloody feud with Magnum TA. I believe we would have mentioned it when we were doing our STARRCADE reviews and the like. So both Tully and Arn at this point, they are well established as a serious force to be reckoned with and a tag team not to be trifled with. So for the young stallion team of Wyndham and Luger to not only be able to go toe to toe with them, but to actually then be able to beat them and become the NWA World Tag Team Champions, it's a massive moment. And we're eventually going to see all sorts of twists and turns between Wyndham and Luger, and Wyndham betraying him, and all this different stuff's going to happen. And Lex will have various, he'll be a face, he'll be a heel, he'll be a face again, and throughout his career he'll go through various runs. But I definitely think that this particular point in time that we're looking at here around the first clash, it's definitely peak Luger. Like, he's so good, he's so over, and all the potential in the world to have a stellar career at this point in time.
Yeah, it's awesome talent in this era. Definitely prefer like 80s Luger compared to, like, I don't know, NWO Luger or whatever.
Yeah, or Luger, the choke artist that's losing to Yokozuna in the most important match. And nothing to get, like, once again, like, because Luger, especially among contemporary fans, and maybe even fans back in the day, like, people were kind of quick to point out his shortcomings compared to other wrestlers of the era. But when you look at
a lot of other bloody fools that can't wrestle.
Yeah, and especially if you're looking at his stuff through modern eyes, there's nothing wrong with it. He does everything really as well as possibly be expected. Bearing in mind, he's only in the business like 2 or 3 years at this point. Like, he is
That's
really
even more impressive.
Yeah, he's coming along in leaps and bounds at this point in time.
Like, see
And
Hulk Hogan, like you could have like learned some stuff in 3 years instead of just, I mean, obviously he got over with his moves, but you know, you could learn some more things.
And with Luger, if he just kind of, it's like everything else. When you give him like a manager or something decent to work with, he can work as a character as well. He's not the most charismatic by himself, but under the right circumstances, he can excel. But for whatever reason in the WWF, they just hamstrung him with that old American boy gimmick that was just
Yeah,
dead
brought
on
up the
arrival.
mirrors and all that.
And like, the mirrors thing though, the narcissist thing, like that was kind of better at least than the American, superhero thing. At least it was.
I feel like the one
maybe you could
person
sink
who was
your teeth
brawling in the
into.
crowd more than the ladies would have been Vince. Would have been like, that's the
yeah.
man I want to be.
Yeah. And let's not forget that when Vince originally hired Lex, it wasn't even to be a wrestler; it was for the World Bodybuilding Federation.
Oh, really?
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, he was only interested in this. He wasn't interested in any type of wrestling talent or acumen in that respect. But speaking of wrestling talent, you're not going to get too much more talented than what we're about to see now for our
More of these
show
guys
closing
hanging out
main
at the
event.
gym.
Yeah, we're going to we're about to talk about the big one, what it's all about here tonight, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and it's going to be the champion Ric Flair going up against the untested, the unproven, this bright, shiny new guy called Sting. The man called Sting, the Stinger.
Do you notice in his match he gets his they both get their trademark woos in, like they're different variations of the woo. They both get them in.
This match is a classic, and obviously, like we always do, we're not going to go through it blow by blow or anything like that. It's all up on YouTube for free. This whole event is up on YouTube.
Yeah,
for
Clash. You go on the it's on the WCW channel, which is the offshoot of the WWE channel, and you look under playlists, and you've got pay-per-views, and you've also got like Clash, and there's like you got the full event up there. I love when Sting comes out, man. He's got he comes out with a jacket that I mean, there's so many variations of colors of Sting outfits, just like, I don't know, Warrior or Rick Rude, just different colors, the same outfit, different colors, Scorpion, tights, pants. But he comes out with a jacket, and it's like, if you've ever seen like Drive and Ryan Gosling, it's that jacket, obviously, before that movie existed. It's the silver version, and it's like all kind of reflective, and it's got this gold Scorpion. It looks so badass.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. Sting, yeah, the ring jacket, everything, the face paint, the shredded physique. He's not quite as big as he was when he debuted first, when he was tagging with Warrior, when they were just like
he's better. He's more athletic.
Breakfast.
He's more like Macho Man kind of,
Oh yeah, and on this night, I'm pretty sure like Warrior is having like some match in the middle of the card at Mania 4, whereas here we have his tag partner Sting, who's going to main event the first ever Clash of Champions against the World Heavyweight Champion. And it's going to be a breakout year for both the former Blade Runners, but for me at least anyway, like I am a fan of Warrior, like I enjoy watching his stuff, but like Sting is like 10 times the wrestler that the Ultimate Warrior is in terms of talent.
And I love, whenever I think of like this NWA later 80s period, like my favorite stuff is like Flair Sting, or like Flair and Dragon, or otherwise in the earlier, go back like 70s early, as it's like it was Flair, Dusty Rhodes, and that's like the ones that like stand out to me, these like awesome matches of rivalries.
And just like we mentioned with Luger only been in the business 2 or 3 years, you can say the same thing about Sting here. Really, he's very, very fresh. He's
such
very
an amazing
talent. Business,
unbelievable. He's so young, and he's like, it's like watching other young. It's like watch a young Randy Orton or a John Cena. It's like this. He's young, and he's just ripped and strong and fresh, and he's like fit, and he's not all injured and beaten up as we all get later in life. So it's just amazing to see him at this point in time.
there's a nice wee touch here on commentary as well. Like obviously they are clued into the fact that this match is going to go to full time limit, but they pretend that they have other matches on standby just in case this
Yeah,
match
I
ends
love that.
early. Is it?
I had to look up
Yeah,
the match list and say, what were these other matches? Like, hang on, what other bloody matches?
yeah.
Bob Cottle, what are
You
you talking about?
fibbers. Yeah, you liars. But it's great. Like it
Next
adds
is
to the
going to be Bob
realism.
Calder wrestling with his grade school teacher in the back car park.
Yeah. I'm Bob Caudle, and I'm going to make you wrestle with sleep.
Who were the commentators again? It was Bob Caudle, and who was the other main commentator?
Is it Jim Ross and Bob Caudle tonight?
No, it was
And
because Jim was doing like the crowd. Jim was like in the crowd and that, and there was like,
it must
I
be
mean, he's in.
it's Tony. It's Tony and Bob, I think.
Yeah, Tony. Yeah, it's
and Bob.
Tony and Caudle on commentary, and then Jim Ross is through the whole thing, but he's doing more the cutaway segments in it.
But yeah, it's a masterclass by Flair because he's able to disguise Sting's kind of shortcomings and inexperience, and he leads them through like the match. It goes a long time, but it doesn't feel like it goes long. Like everything is just kind of happening,
Yeah,
bang, bang,
it
bang.
doesn't feel like the Bret Hart Shawn Iron Man match, which is a very enjoyable match. But they've got that goddamn timer in the corner. You're aware of every minute of that. Whereas in that match, whereas in this one, you're not aware of any of the minutes. It doesn't feel like you're watching more than a 10, 15-minute match, and none of it feels bloated or boring. It sails along like it's so crisp and so good.
Crowd are really into Sting as this kind of like hyper
Audio hearing those
strong muscle man.
chops coming in. So
Yeah.
good.
I know what I love as well is like, Flair, he tries to like back Sting into the corner and he chops him and Sting just no sells the chop and just walks right out of the corner towards him. The
Like,
crowd
it feels like it hurts just
crazy.
hearing. I mean, they do hurt those chops, but just the sound of it's like, oh, when you're watching it.
The way Flair kind of works with Sting as well, like when he gets offense on Sting, it's always something small. It's like a chop or a little kick to the gut or a punch to the side of the back or whatever. Whereas when Sting does a move, it's always like power, power, power. It's like the big power slam, the big scoop slam.
Overhead press, man, to me is so much more impressive than the Warriors one. It just seems like more dynamic in the way he does it, and he's not so much. I mean, it's a little bit of showboating move, of course, because bloody Road Warriors and other guys do it. But I love his version of it. It's just so impressive.
Yeah, like the Sting, he looks like he shouldn't really be able to move as well as he does because he's so big. Like he looks like he shouldn't even be able to bend his arms fully because they wouldn't be able to touch off his sides. But yeah, he's still able to. Yeah, like you said, there's a real like his moves just kind of flow really naturally. There's no. It's not, when Warrior picks up somebody overhead and you can actually see he's kind of shaking because he's struggling to keep them in place. Whereas when Sting does it, it's like up and down. It's like really simple. It's like I'm just going to scoop you up and put you down. Like it's like it's nothing to him. And even just the timing of everything, like he goes for those stinger splashes and Flair just moves at the last second and he hits the corner. It's like anytime Flair gets any offense on him, it's because like Sting made a mistake. It's not because Flair is able to overpower him or anything like that. He's looking for these kind of opportunities where he can sneak in a cheap little move to try and gain some type of advantage on Sting. But like nothing seems to work. And it goes like, the first 20 minutes, they're going back and forth and Flair's kind of able to keep getting control on him. But by the time we move into like over 20 minutes, it's starting to become clear that like everything that Flair is doing is having less and less an effect on Sting, but everything Sting is doing to Flair, it's like practically killing Flair. And like Flair is, he's going to be in like real jeopardy of losing the belt if something doesn't happen. And like one of the major moments in the match is when, Flair, he's locked in that figure four, he's starting to crunch down on Sting, but then Sting, he just kind of sits up and he's looking at him, he starts beating his chest and he turns the hold around and like reverses it on Flair and the crowd just go insane. Like you'd swear he'd just done the like coolest thing that anybody could ever possibly do by turning the hold over, even though it's something that people do all the time to get out of the hold. Because he's so popular and because the The crowd are just dying to see him win the match. They go absolutely crazy when he manages to reverse it and break out of it, to the point where even when you watch this match and you've watched it before, you've read the history, you know the result, there are times during the match where even you can still believe, like, oh, maybe Sting is going to beat him for the belt here. Like, you know, I know he doesn't, but is he going to? He's kind of making me believe here. And yeah, he, like Flair, he just keeps, you know, barely hanging on by the skin of his teeth until he just manages to go the distance time limit wise. And this is where kind of it gets into what we were speaking about earlier, where the judges have to be now called upon because we go to time limit
when
distance.
Flair's like, oh, my back.
Yeah, it's
like you can hear it. Or he's like, my back. It's like...
So I can't even remember who voted what, but all you really need to know is that based on the judges' deliberations, that the match is essentially declared a draw, and in the case of a draw, you retain your championship belt. So even though Sting, he was not victorious on this night, he still was able to go the distance with the champ, and he was still convincing enough that the crowd now believe, the fans now believe, that if he was to ever get another shot at Flair, he would definitely be able to beat him. And that's the real magic of this match. It's just that Flair took somebody who was, you know, Sting, he walked into this match as like an up-and-comer with a lot of potential, but he walked out of this match as a star and a contender for the championship. And that's the real magic of this match at work. What did you think of this?
And it's great that they'll go on to have more annual, well, not just more like clashes, like as in the Clash event, but you know, there's a number of other good Flair Sting matches over the years.
Yeah, they really had just a natural chemistry in the ring. Like they were almost a perfect chemistry. Like Flair is the perfect opponent for Sting. He knows where and when to be for everything that Sting does in order to make Sting look as good as possible. And you know, like Sting, he looked so goddamn good in this match. Like it's actually, you get the feeling watching this match that, you know, I could walk out there and Flair could just make me look like a star. You know, like he's that good at just, you know. And I know, like Sting he's really jacked and he looks great, but like I said, he had no real big match experience, and he's able to go this distance with Flair, and for Flair to be able to pull what he pulled out of him and you know, get him to the level that he got him, all from this one match. You know, that alone would make this event a success. But the fact that they had like just an undercard of really entertaining matches, like the longest match I think on the undercard might be like 10 or 11 minutes, and but like it really works well when you've got a main event that goes the full distance, a really long amount of time. It's nice to have the undercard broken up with lots of short little matches. Like this clash, like, and if I had to say right now, and like I do enjoy WrestleMania 4, and I do enjoy watching Savage go the distance in the tournament and winning the belt and all that stuff, but if we're just comparing shows on the night, one versus the other, this first Clash of the Champions is way better from a match standpoint than WrestleMania 4. Like there's nothing on WrestleMania 4, in my opinion, that can touch Flair versus Sting. There's nothing on WrestleMania 4 that can touch both tag team matches, both the Tully and Arn versus Luger and Wyndham tag match, but also the Midnights versus the Fantastics tag match is also excellent as well. So we get like two really great tag matches and a classic singles match all on the one night. It's just a fantastic show and a fantastic like inaugural debut.
Yeah, like you get them after this
event.
initial one, you get them about every 3 months. So there was 4 per year for the next 2 years.
Yeah, they do them quarterly. Now if you're looking on the WCW YouTube channel, they only have like 5 of them uploaded so far, and I don't even think they're all in sequential order. Like it might go like 1, 3, 6, 8. Like they're kind of random
Yeah,
so far. The ones
one
they've
used to
uploaded.
always be missing even on the network. Not number one, but 2 or 3. One of them was just always missing for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, there must be damaged tapes
I
or
think
something
so. I
like
think
that.
something like that.
But we will most likely, I would say, I have a gut feeling at some point we will be returning to the genre that is Clash of the Champions. It's just they usually have significant things actually happen on them that make them worthwhile shows to cover. Until once we get into the mid to late 90s, they do become a bit redundant. But before then, it's a quality kind of format and a nice little show
Yeah,
to
they
be
make
able to
a
watch.
transition in the Turner era, like in the early 90s, it continues along pretty much the same. But by the time you get to the Nitro era, it's very different clashes. It's kind of just a name. It's kind of meaningless by then.
And the WWE, they tried themselves to kind of relaunch this in a way, like they would do a
Reappropriate the
hit,
name.
yeah, like they
Then they
did
mixed
a
into other events,
pay-per-view.
which confused me.
Yes, yeah, like they started off doing, I think, a pay-per-view event called Night of Champions, which was supposed to be,
Yeah,
it's all title matches, all the titles defended. Then they did bring back the Clash, but they didn't call it Clash of the Champions. They called
it was
it
like Clash at the
Clash of
Castle and that.
Champions. The Clash of Champions, they dropped the there. There was a
Right.
bad word for some reason. So they just called it Clash of Champions. Then they got rid of it again. And then AEW, since they got the TV deal on TBS, they've kind of resurrected it with their own version of it,
Oh, it
which
was
they
the
call
TBS
Battle of.
deal. That's what I was trying to work out, the
Yeah,
AEW thing, why they had the different variation, because I didn't know it was the TBS. That was the connection to it.
that's the connection. Yeah, because the AEW version is called Battle of the Belts. So they have their own quarterly show called Battle of the Belts, which is supposed to mirror the old Clash of the Champions shows. In my opinion, they usually do not succeed because their shows are not as good as these old Jim Crockett shows. But that's just my old man
Yeah.
personal opinion. I'm not
I
saying they're
still get
awful shows
confused
or
with the
anything.
naming Clash of the Champions, because you had Marvel Comics in the 80s had Contest of Champions, and then there was that Clash, that movie with all the mythology, like, I don't know, Jason the Argonauts and all the Harry Horse and all that stuff. My head, it all just gets mixed up.
Yeah. Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, that's the one, the Titans. Then there was that terrible remake of Liam Neeson. And,
Yeah, no, we won't be reviewing that terrible remake,
oh.
hopefully ever on this show. But yeah, that was the first ever Clash. Do we
It's
know
a
yet
classic.
what's
You
on
can
the
go back
card?
any of those. I think the first 8, like, watch any of them. Awesome.
Awesome. But this first one especially, I would highly recommend. Like I said, it's right there for free. It used to be hard to find them, but look, if they're
Yeah,
going to
you
keep
can't get
uploading
on
them for
DVD or
free,
nothing. I mean, not in bloody Australia or nothing. I don't know, out in America if they released it over there.
yeah, not in its full form anyway. They released like a best of Clash of the Champions,
Yeah, I've
which
got
will
the
have like
best
the
of one.
feature matches. It's not the same though. We like to watch these events in
No, it's all.
full.
I'd rather, though, good or bad, I'd rather watch one event all the way through than just highlights of 10 years worth of that event. It's not the same when it's a big mishmash.
Do we know yet what the topic of next week's show is?
Haven't picked one for sure yet. We haven't ever gone. We've never done King of the Ring yet. We could look at the first one of that. That's one option. And there's also some other other stuff. You got stuff like Bunkhouse Stampede, which unfortunately there's no real full videos of. There's only like random clips, and it's a real cobbled together history there. And then you've got things like the bloody Star Wars, which I'm not that much up on that, but it's the early 80s tag team ones. I'm just looking at these other early cable stuff and pay-per-view stuff and the different rival promotions, and it kind of completes our like circle of stuff from that era before we get into other things. So yeah, there's a few different options. We'll sort of kind of pin it down over the next day or so, I think.
I'm kind of maybe leaning towards King of the Ring, the first ever King of the Ring in
Let's do
'93.
it. Let's do it.
Because it's I know I'm pretty sure it's up on Netflix, so that makes it just easy for us to.
Yeah.
Whereas the other stuff, I know the WCCW Star Wars, it'll probably hard to find, full footage of that. And even though I've watched the Bunkhouse Stampede, believe it or not, in its entirety, but that was on a ancient YouTube video that has long since been taken off, for copyright reasons. So, but that's not to say that we wouldn't be interested in discussing these topics. We just need to get our hands on a decent copy that we can actually look at and examine. So maybe for simplicity and ease of access, we'll go with the 93 King of the Ring for
let's go
next.
King of the Ring, and I'm keen to have a look at least one of the Star Warses in the next few weeks, because there's a channel that's got quite a few of them saved on there that's been up there for ages, and they haven't gone down, so it's been up there for several years. That's why I stumbled across them one time by accident.
Maybe send me that link later. So
I did. I chucked it in there because it's more stuff. When I'm reading my wrestling biographies and history of stuff, I'm always looking at, like, there's a lot of stuff that's just not available anywhere, because I mean there's hundreds of wrestling bloody shows from the territories days, and a lot of it never recorded in the first place, of course. But there's a lot of tapes and stuff from various YouTubers and people on their own accounts, where there's a lot of GCW stuff, and there's some good AWA, and there's like weekly house shows and all that. So it's great, a lot of that stuff up there, because once the bloody WWE went to Netflix, all the back library is just dormant now. It's not doing all the documentaries, all the tape libraries, other than the WCW channel. All of it's just sitting around, and it's like millions of bloody hours of wrestling.
Only some lucky Germans are lucky enough to still be experiencing the WWE network, and I
was pissed off because I was watching old clips of bloody like Slaughter and Piper back in like 81, 82, Flair and Jay Youngblood. I was watching all these like old shows and stuff they had on there. It was awesome, and then it's all gone.
All gone until they deem it.
So it might appear in one day.
Hopefully we're not too old by the time all this stuff reappears again.
Yeah.
Netflix are always looking for more content, so I'm sure eventually they'll try uploading most of this stuff.
Maybe Ted Turner will come back like Return of the Living Dead style. He's just like, I'm taking it all back.
Taking it all back. I'm going to Turner this around.
Yeah. Turn him loose.
Yeah. Good fun though, folks. Really enjoyed chatting with Johnny about the first Clash of the Champions.
Woo!
Let us know what you think of this show. Let us know if you were alive at the time this was airing on TV. Did you watch it live? Were you one of the lucky few who got to watch it live? Not lucky few, but lucky few that we would know.
Yeah.
Let us know. Or did you watch it on the network? Did you watch it on YouTube just recently? Let us know your thoughts on Sting versus Flair and all the other good stuff from this show, where we'd be happy to read them.
Yeah, awesome event. I really enjoyed it, and it's cool sitting down having a chat about it. We'll catch you guys next week.
Take care, folks.